Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are a very new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they seem to have built up a really good reputation for themselves over the last couple of years. And from what I've seen, they are quite prolific and they're also trying quite a few different styles. And for me, that's a very good sign when it comes to a new and up-and-coming brewery. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I really quite enjoy, one that I would say is enjoying something of a renewed popularity in recent times as well. And I'm seeing more and more Japanese brewed examples of these beers too, which I'm very happy about. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Always nice to introduce new Japanese breweries to you guys that watch the channel as well. So hopefully this is another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head a bit north of me here in Osaka up to Fukui Prefecture. We're going to go to Fukui City, and that means that we're going to have a look at my first beer from our brewing. So this particular beer is called Dino King. It comes in at 7% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. So yeah, this is yet another beer that I picked up at the wonderful liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi Yamaichi here in Osaka. Lovely little beer shop run by Koji, but mainly his daughter Rika these days, because Koji is getting a little bit older. And they've always got a great selection of Japanese beers. And yeah, it speaks volumes for the Japanese beer scene in recent times, because I'm finding new breweries that I've never tried very frequently on my visits at the moment, which I'm very happy about, because yeah, quite a lot of the time when I was coming before, I was reviewing beers from the same breweries, which I did enjoy, but yeah, it's always cool to do new breweries, like I said, and these guys are pretty damn new, I have to say. But yeah, make sure you check out the link to Liquor Shop Asahiya in the video description below. Definitely worth checking out if you find yourself here in Osaka. But let's crack on and see what our first look at our brewing is going to have in store for us. Yeah, the Dino King 7% West Coast IPA. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I will hopefully do in the future from our brewing. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go into the homepage, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to very regular at the moment, because I do come over here to visit my son, and we do get quite a little bit of Japanese beer in Hong Kong these days, which I'm very happy about too. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on at the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about our brewing for the first time then. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, our brewing are based in Fukui City in Fukui Prefecture here in Japan, and the company was founded by Tomohiro Okada, and they released their first beers in August of 2022. So Tomohiro apparently first encountered craft beer during his time studying abroad in Ohio over in the US, and apparently he went into a brewery and just asked for a beer, but he was left a little bit flabbergasted when the waiter asked him which one, because at the time he really didn't realise that there were so many different kinds. But this waiter apparently very kindly guided him through the different beers that they had on offer, and so he tried a few different ones, and apparently this was his real epiphany. And he says that after this he became obsessed with the taste of craft beer and learning more about it, and he loved the fact that he could interact with so many different people over a beer. So when he returned to Fukui, he really wanted to bring some of that American craft beer culture back with him to his local area and introduce people to different kinds of beer. So apparently he used his holidays from work to work at another local brewery called Ichigokura, and gain some experience. And for the first few years, they were releasing beers in collaboration with them and other breweries around Japan. But the first regular beer they produced under the Our Brewing name was a pale ale called The First Batch. This was released in November of 2022, and then they released a dry hopped version of it as well, from what I understand. So over the first few years, they were kind of like contract brewing or collaboration brewing their beers, but then in January of 2024, they opened a new brewery and tap room in the Minie food hall, which is right across from the JR Fukui station. So this brewery is equipped with a 1,000 litre brew kit from Laugh International, which is a Japanese company that's equipped many craft breweries across Japan. And yeah, over the last little while, they've been starting to work to get their beers out there across Japan to different beer shops and things like that. And as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 40 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Our Brewing for the moment. The only other thing I would add to that is that they've changed their logo. The original logo was a guy that looked as if he was kind of throwing a beer like this, like a beer cocktail, like almost like a Molotov or something. So it was like that. But then yeah, they've changed it to this kind of blank sort of speech bubble type thing in recent times. I think that was 2023 that they changed that. So yeah, their bottles, when they had the bottles, they had the original label, but the cans, it seems, all have the kind of speech bubble type logo. So yeah, as I say, that's everything I can really tell you about these guys for the moment. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So on the Untappd page, there was no information about what hops or things were actually in this beer, but it does tell you on the side here that it has some Simcoe in it. So yeah, I'll just like have a wee look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. You can see it is quite straightforward. Plain silver top on the can there. This one is, I think, a 350 milliliter can. And yeah, as I said, on the side there, you can see it tells you a little bit about the beer, and you can see that it's Simcoe on the side as well. My Japanese reading isn't that great. I can speak okay, but yeah, my reading isn't quick enough, if you like, to kind of go through that on the video. But yeah, like I say, West Coast IPA, this one, my first one from Our Brewing. This should be quite nice. It's double dry hopped as well. So let's get it out into the glass and see what we have. I'm really curious about this, because this beer, I think when I checked it out on Untappd, it had a rating of 4, which is usually pretty solid. As I always say, take Untappd with a bit of a pinch of salt. But yeah, for a very new Japanese brewery to see one rated that high, it's quite exciting actually. So there we go. We'll give it a little bit of an aggressive pour. And there we are. I have to say, that does look pretty damn nice actually, when you consider it's a West Coast IPA. So, yeah, before the head disappears then, you can see that this beer's poured with just under a 3/4 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream-coloured head there. You can see some medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there, but it does get a little bit foamier the further up that you go, which is quite nice. And you can see the colour of this beer is very nice actually. It's a lovely kind of rich blood orange amber almost. The beer does have a slight degree of natural haze to it, but it is pretty clear. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. When it comes to the West Coast IPAs though, I would say that these beers can kind of lean 2 different ways. They can be a little bit more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or they can be a little bit more kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Russian River Pliny the Elder. Those are the 2 kind of benchmarks for me at either end of the spectrum. Just judging by the colour of this one and the fact that it's got that deeper amber to it, I would say that this is probably more likely to be a kind of oily and caramelly one, which I'm quite excited about. Some people refer to the more light bready biscuity ones as Cali IPAs these days. But yeah, this one looks as if it might well be a more old school West Coast IPA. So I'm hoping for some nice high bitterness and a good little bit of caramelly malt in there, just going by the appearance, but not too much in the way of visible carbonation. The beer looks very nice. You can see the head has faded away to be a thinner foamy layer now, and you've got that nice ring around the edge of the glass too. But all in all, nothing really madly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So I think we can go on and have a little look at the aroma and see what this beer is going to give us. So let's do it. Oh, it's quite nice. It's pretty malty leaning actually, which, as I said, it's got a nice little bit of brown sugar to it, which you would have expected from the colour. But yeah, it gives you everything you'd kind of want from the style, in all honesty, just based on a quick look at the aroma. So for me, you've got the breadiness that you want, you've got the brown sugary notes, you've got the nice hoppy character, the nice green component, and you've also got that big sort of oily, fruity kind of thing coming out of this one too. So yeah, I'm just going to say straight away, based on the aroma, it gets a thumbs up from me so far. It does smell a little bit kind of old school, and there's something very familiar about this. I wonder if it's using US-05 yeast, because there's just a characteristic about the breadiness in this one that seems very, very familiar. It really strikes me as a little bit old school, this beer. I'd love to see the brew sheet for this one, because I think it's using American 2-row malt and then US-05 yeast, because there's just something about the profile of this beer that's very nostalgic for me, going back to 2011, 2012, when I was just getting into craft beer. But yeah, interesting stuff, that's for sure. So let's just break that aroma down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, you have that lovely kind of wholemeal, brown bready bread crust there. That is the backbone of your beer. There's a little touch of woodiness to it, of course, which is great. So yeah, you've got that lovely little touch of woodiness in there, the wholemeal brown bready bread crust, and then yeah, you have on top of that just a little bit of kind of cracker for sure. But beyond that, you're getting a nice wholemeal brown bready character out of this one. The malty character in this, I think it could be a mix of English and American malt in this, just on further examination, because you do get that little bit of drier graininess in there, maybe a little bit of Maris Otter, but you do have a really nice kind of more oily and sweet wholemeal brown bread to this one, and that oiliness that it has reminds me of the American 2-row malts. So yeah, that's quite interesting too. There's a white bready character in there too, which again is quite oily, and yeah, reminds me of 2-row malts even more. But the way it all goes together, I think, is very, very nice in this one, I have to say. So yeah, good mix of wholemeal brown bread in there and a little bit of white bread, but they're all just that little touch greeny, I would say. So I really do like how that pieces together in this one. The malty backbone in this beer is really interesting. Beyond the breadiness though, you do start to get a little bit of brown sugar out of this one. So there's a little touch of like a roasty toasty brown sugar to the beer. So you've got that in there, roasty toasty brown sugar. There's a wee bit of, I'm definitely getting some kind of straight up sweet caramel out of this beer. So in the centre of the nose, yeah, there is that straight up sweet caramel in there. There's a tiny little bit of like fudge or Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch or something like that. And then yeah, you've got the toasty caramelly notes just kind of underneath it. So yeah, I like that about this one. I do really like how that goes together. So yeah, for me, the way that all of that just kind of pieces together, I think is really, really nice. So yeah, I wonder if there's a little bit of that grape sugar being used in this one. Some brewers with the West Coast IPAs back in the day used to use this little bit of grape sugar, and I'm just getting that little bit of kind of fruitiness mixed in with the brown sugar that makes me think that, in honesty. Yeah, the yeasty side of the beer at the back of the nose is again quite brown bready, but there's a wee bit of white bread and bread crust and cracker and stuff in there. Nothing unusual there, but like I said, some of the characters in this beer are very nostalgia triggering for me. As I say, maybe US05 yeast in this one, which I would certainly not be surprised about. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. In terms of the hoppy character then, so when it comes to your IPAs, as I've said many a time, there are 3 different kinds of hopping that you need to think about. You've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you your bitterness mostly and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. Little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. Then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and then yeah, that's all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very kind of bright green component, I would say. So yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of this beer, I'm curious about this because it doesn't come across as overly deep and dank, but it has got some kind of leafiness and wetness to it. So yeah, on the green component, there's a little touch of earthiness to this one, which I do like. You've got a little bit of woodiness in there as well, and there's some nice floral aromaticity, and it's quite a wet, leafy kind of character that comes out of this one. Some lovely grassiness to the beer as well. So yeah, the green component that you get from this one is absolutely lovely. I really do like how that pieces together. So some nice floral aromaticity, some lovely leafy, grassy notes in there, and yeah, it's yeah, I don't think there's too much else to say about the green component, but it doesn't come across as overly deep and dank, which I'm quite curious about. So yeah, fruity side of things. Let's see, this one has Simcoe in it, and I forgot to say this earlier on, but yeah, Simcoe, it's an American hop, 12% alpha acid, and usually it gives you this kind of passion fruity character, and it's more oily, of course, in a West Coast IPA with that more sweet malt base. It's very soft and juicy passion fruit that you'll get out of it in the New England IPAs with the oat and the wheats in the malt base as well. But yeah, the fruitiness that you get out of this beer is quite interesting. I do wonder if there's a bit of cascade in this too, because you've got, on the fruity side of things, you've got a little touch of almost kind of blackcurrant and almost a little bit of like pear. It's this kind of oily, peary, sultana type thing. And that makes me think cascade. But yeah, you're getting that nice, big, juicy, oily passion fruit that you would expect of Simcoe. It's been a long time since I've had Simcoe in a West Coast IPA, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure if it says it's only Simcoe that they've used in this one. But that could be quite interesting, a single hop Simcoe West Coast IPA. But yeah, fruity side of this one for me, yeah, a bit of passion fruit, oily pear, sultana, and a wee bit of an almost kind of figgy character as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting beer, this one, in regards to how it goes about its business. So as I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time that we try this one and just see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Dino King, a 7%, was it 7% or 7.5%? I forget. Where is it? I lost it. That's terrible. I forgot what ABV the beer is. But yeah, a West Coast, 7.5%, yeah. A West Coast 7.5%er from Our Brewing in Fukui City, Fukui Prefecture here in Japan. My first beer from these guys. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kanpai. Ooh, that's nice. That's proper old school, that. Yeah, this is really interesting. It has just a little touch of English IPA character. I remember back in the day when I was first getting into these beers, and some of the original, the more traditional Scottish breweries were having a go at these, and they were using the Maris Otter malt and the US-05 yeast, and it just had this really kind of sort of very distinctive brown bready, wholemeal brown bready kind of flavour, and I'm getting that kind of vibe from this beer. This is nice. It really is a little bit of it really is that little bit of nostalgia. So yeah, I like that. I really like that about this one. This gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, proper nostalgic beer for me, this one. As I say, be very curious to see the brew sheet on this one and learn what they've actually done. But yeah, gives you everything you'd want. You've got that nice little bit of hoppy bitterness in there. You've got the breadiness and the sweetness from the malt base and the oily fruits. Solid West Coast IPA, this one, and like I say, the flavour profile of this one is proper old school. So yeah, good stuff. So let's just break this down then and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you. So yeah, middle third of your palate then, the backbone of the beer. You've got that lovely kind of wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. It does give you a little bit of graininess into the aftertaste and a wee bit of dryness, but mainly it's kind of quite oily and quite sweet. But as you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness out of it, and then you can feel that nice kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of note in there. Above that, you've got a lovely, more kind of oily, that lovely oily sweet wholemeal brown bread, and that, as I said earlier, is what really reminds me of the American two-row malts. Above that, you have a more dry and kind of like, still slightly sweet right enough, but a more kind of grainy wholemeal brown bread. So that is, I think that for me, that makes me think of Maris Otter, in all honesty. And then yeah, above that, you've got a more white bready type layer. So yeah, it's interesting how that all pieces together actually. So yeah, above the bready layers then, you start to get the brown sugary side of the beer. So for me, the brown sugary side of this beer, it is a little bit more, you have a layer of like a kind of more toasty brown sugar. And then above that you get the circle in the middle of your palate, which is the more kind of oily type character. So yeah, you've got that nice oily circle in the middle of your palate too. So, you've got the toasty brown sugar, then you can feel it's got a little bit more, that circle that I was talking about, it's maybe a little bit more biscuity at the edge, and then as you gradually move further in toward the centre of your palate, it's maybe got just a little hint of like fudge or something. Then in the dead centre of your tongue, it's got a more oily, straight up, sweet, caramelly type character to it. So yeah, this beer does show you a little bit of booziness. It's 7.5% ABV. It's at the top end of the single IPA spectrum. You could argue it's pushing the kind of boundary of the double almost. That would be 8% for me. But yeah, it does show you a fair little bit of booziness, this one. But these flavours are all really quite nice, and they come out nicely. So the malt base really does give you a mix of it gives you maybe about 70, 2/3, 75% American West Coast IPA, but it does give you a little bit of that more old school English type IPA character as well. And I've had many beers, quite a few, maybe about 10 years ago or something, that were very similar to this. So like I say, a bit of a nostalgia trip with this beer, but I like that. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about the middle third of your palate with this one. So let's go to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, and you're also going to get quite similar flavours on the back third of your palate in comparison to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base, the kind of more white bready, the more kind of sweet brown bread in the middle, then the more white bready character on top. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got the wholemeal brown bready bread crust forming the backbone. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker in there, the more oily brown bready character in there as well, but it feels a little bit lighter, airy, and more dry. Then above that, you've got a more airy brown bready character, again the kind of dry one, like the Maris Ottery sort of one. Then yeah, you've got the white bready character above that, and potentially just a little bit of the toasty brown sugar creeps over the top. So yeah, above everything else on that back third of your palate, you start to get the yeasty side of the beer. So for me, the yeasty side of things, yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me is a little bit more, it's got like a kind of grainy brown bready character at its core, and as you move further out from it, it becomes a little bit sweeter in the brown bready character, and you maybe get some white bready character in there as well, but then yeah, the very edge of it is a more kind of bread crusty affair, that's for sure. But definitely yeah, the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, all in all, the way this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah, so let's go on to the hoppy side of things with this beer then. Back corners of the palate, you do get a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it maybe becomes a little bit woody, and you can feel little touches of pine resin as you move along the sides of your tongue there. But yeah, as you reach the front corners of your palate, it's definitely a little bit more floral and aromatic, a little bit spicy, but it's quite an oily green component that you're getting out of this one, in my opinion. But round the front curve of the tongue, it's that little bit lighter and more grassy, and just a wee touch kind of zesty as well. So yeah, the green component in this one, I think, is really, really nice, and it gets a thumbs up from me. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, we'll go to the front third of your palate. The border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, the kind of brown bread in the more kind of oily brown bread in the base, the more grainy white bread on top, and then the white bready character in there. But then yeah, you've got the base of that the base of the front third of your palate there, you've got the nice kind of brown bready bread crust again, all these kind of things, the two layers of brown bread, then the white bread, and you can feel a little bit of the toasty caramel lingering there too. But then yeah, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this one is quite interesting. I do wonder if there's maybe more than Simcoe in this, because the beer feels a little bit orangey as well. Could it be like a bit of Simcoe and Mosaic or something? I'm wondering if what I said about Cascade was right in this one too. But yeah, at the back, in that oily bubble at the back of it, you do get that nice kind of oily passion fruit and a wee bit of a drier passion fruit underneath. But as you move further forward, it's got a little bit of apricot to it, I would say. So yeah, nice kind of as I say, yeah, nice kind of passion fruity note in there, wee bit of apricot, as I say, a little touch of mango. But yeah, I find as you go into the front half of the front third of your palate, the beer's got a little bit more of a kind of orangey character, and the earthiness that the beer has and the orangey notes that it has makes me think Mosaic. So yeah, but I would have thought they would say that on the side of the can too. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about the fruity side of things for me. Yeah, Maybe a little bit of oily pear as well. So if we go from the back, yeah, you've got the passion fruit and a bit of oily pear underneath, wee touch of juicy mango, then yeah, apricot, and yeah, the front half of that front third of your tongue is more about a kind of tangerine oily orange, if you like, which makes me think mosaic along with the earthiness. So yeah, I think at that we've said everything that I would really want about the flavour of this beer. It's quite an interesting one, I have to say that. So yeah, I think we can move on, pardon me, and round off the review with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's mid-bodied. The carbonation does have a little bit of crispness to it, which is great. You want that from the West Coast IPA, but again, as you often get with Japanese beers, it has that little bit of cleanliness and drinkability to it. Very good water quality, and it just feels that little bit lighter. The Japanese, as I've often said, to them beer has to be drinkable. It really does. But yeah, the hoppy side of this one, the IBU, what could we say? Yeah, the hoppy side of this beer for me is quite yeah, I would say that it's maybe, doesn't feel as if it's going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness, but I think it's maybe 50 or 60 IBUs. Doesn't feel like it's, you know, an old 70, 80, 90 IBU on this. There's a bit of graininess underneath in the malt base, a bit of smoothness in the middle, and then a kind of more oily sweetness on top, and then yeah, the fruity side of things. And this one is quite oily once again. It's got a good balance between the more tropical softness and the more oily, sweet, citrusy character. So yeah, the way that it goes together in that regard is really nice. But a proper old school West Coast IPA, this one. It shows you a wee bit of the English character and that little bit more of an American West Coasty note to it as well. A proper nostalgic one. This I do reckon US 05 East, and a mix of Maris Otter and Turo in the malt base here. There's just something very familiar about this. So yeah, this has been a really nice introduction to our brewing, and I'm certainly curious to try some of their other beers now. But this one was the Dino King 7.5% West Coast IPA from our brewing in Fukui, Fukui Ken, Fukui City, Fukui Prefecture in English, here in Japan. So another brewery that I need to keep an eye on going forward. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from our brewing as well, and we will return to these guys again at some point very soon. Until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao just now.